What's up everyone, Ken from Wiltshire Tutorials here today, and welcome to a new video. And in this video I'd like to introduce you to my custom Animal Crossing Switch dock. With Animal Crossing being announced for 2019, I decided to make something special in celebration of that. And I also made this as a birthday gift for someone who's close to me who really adores Animal Crossing. So you're probably thinking to yourself, what makes this custom dock so special? What separates this custom dock from the rest of the pack is the glowing logo on the front. That's right, you heard me, the logo on the front glows. Now the logo only starts glowing when you dock the Switch, so it's not on all the time. The glowing logo is a little bit difficult to see here due to the use of studio lights in the video. However, when you turn the lights off, that's when the Switch dock really shines. Pun intended. But in all seriousness, I am very proud of the glowing logo when you dock the Switch. Not only am I proud for coming up with this idea, but I'm also proud on how well it turned out. I cut that leaf logo out on the front by hand with a Dremel. And believe me, cutting that out was not the easiest thing in the world. It took me about an hour to carefully cut that out. But we'll come back to that when I explain the build process of this entire project. So we're just going to swap over to the back just to give you an idea of what the back looks like. So instead of having the etched Nintendo logo and the etched HDMI logo on the back flap of the dock, I decided to put a graphic of Isabelle waving with a few flowers to make it more custom and interesting. And in case you're wondering, yes, I did paint the inner side of the Switch dock where the HDMI port and the power port are. Now that you have a basic idea of what the Switch dock looks like, let's move over to the build process and how I actually managed to do this. So the first thing I did was disassemble the Switch dock. Disassembling the Switch dock is rather straightforward and I didn't really need a guide to do so. However, if you do need a guide on disassembling the Switch dock, I do recommend the teardown video by Gamers Nexus. Steve and the crew over at Gamers Nexus made a great teardown video of the Switch dock and the Nintendo Switch, and they were able to get a little bit better angles with the camera work than I would have been able to do myself. With that said, there's a link for that video in the description below. Make sure you go over there and subscribe to Steve and the Gamers Nexus crew. With the Switch dock disassembled, I went on Google and Googled for an Animal Crossing logo that had a high resolution. I eventually came across an image that was 1000 by 1000 pixels. This image, however, wasn't transparent and it was a JPEG, so I brought it into Photoshop and I took the magic eraser tool and deleted the white space, making the photo transparent. Now that the Animal Crossing logo is transparent, I booted up my laptop and I grabbed my Cricut machine. If you're unfamiliar with a Cricut machine is a do-it-yourself cutting machine. With a Cricut machine, you can basically cut anything that you want, such as text or in this case, a logo for a Switch dock. Before making any kind of cuts though, I wanted to measure the original logo that was on the Switch dock's front plate. I did this because I wanted the Animal Crossing logo to be roughly the same size as the logo that's already on the front panel. The measurement I ended up getting was 1 7/16, which if we use the metric system is about 3.65 centimeters. With that measurement in mind, I went to my Cricut program and scaled the logo accordingly. Now that I had the logo scaled correctly in the Cricut program, we can now start cutting the Animal Crossing logo on a piece of vinyl using the Cricut machine. With the Animal Crossing logo cut on the piece of vinyl, I took the piece of vinyl and cut away a small section of the vinyl. This way I don't waste the piece of vinyl because vinyl is very expensive and I like to keep small pieces of vinyl around for projects like this. Next, I peeled out the center of the Animal Crossing logo and we're going to use the outline of the vinyl as a template to cut the Animal Crossing logo. All I did was line up the vinyl outline of the Animal Crossing logo with the current Switch dock logo and we're ready to cut. Approximately about an hour of freehand cutting with the Dremel and this is the final result. It turned out really good. Originally I had intended on 3D printing the front plate of the Switch dock with the Animal Crossing logo cut out. However, I don't own a 3D printer so I'd have to outsource for that and it probably would take a long time for me to get the part back. So with the Animal Crossing logo cut out on the front plate of the Switch dock, I got the idea of putting a piece of frosted acrylic behind the logo. After making a few trips to a few local Lowe's and Home Depots, I was unable to find some frosted acrylic sheets. So with me unable to find a frosted acrylic sheet in a retail store, I ended up buying a normal acrylic sheet and then getting a can of Rust-Oleum's frosted spray and making my own frosted acrylic. Once the spray had dried on the acrylic sheet, I cut out a small square to fit inside the Switch dock, wired up a few LEDs just to see what the logo will look like when it glows, and I was pretty satisfied with the result that I got, so I continued to add a few more LEDs after that. With the front glowing logo complete, I decided to move on to working on the back side of the Switch dock. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I wanted to add something a little bit different to the back of the Switch dock because in my opinion the back of the Switch dock is a little bit plain looking. So I ended up coming up with the idea of adding a graphic of Isabelle waving with a few flowers on the back flap of the Switch dock. The graphic was printed on sticker paper and then it was eventually laminated to protect the sticker from the clear coat which would be used on the Switch dock at a later time. With the front logo cut out and everything prepped and ready to go, I took the time to label each individual part and what color I wanted it to be. In this photo here, you'll notice that the back flap of the Nintendo Switch dock actually is labeled green. I actually ended up inverting the colors before I painted it, and I'm extremely glad that I ended up making the choice to invert the colors because in my opinion it looks a lot better than my original plan. So the next step was to bring the parts of the switch dock to work. Just a quick side note, I work at a car dealership and I have access to a body shop. So the first thing that I did while in the body shop was to fill in the etched Nintendo logo and HDMI logo with plastic filler. The reason why I'm filling this in is because I had a little bit of overlap when it came to the Isabel graphic on the back. With the plastic filler applied to the switch dock flap, I let this part sit and dry for about 24 hours. After letting the switch dock flap dry for about 24 hours, I came back in the morning and sanded off the excess plastic filler. With the Nintendo logo and HDMI logos filled in, I primed the back flap just in case the plastic filler missed anything when filling it in. After priming the back flap, it was pretty much a matter of just choosing the colors for the switch dock. The colors that I ultimately ended up going with are on the color chips you see on screen now. So the yellow was 4654 and the green was 4706. With those two color codes in mind, it was off to the mixing room to mix the paint. With the paint mixed, it was time to scuff the parts with a Scotch-Brite pad and then they were ready to be painted. In this photo here, this is the parts after they were quickly given a few coats of paint. At the time of this photo, this is right after I put the Isabel graphic on the back of the flap of the switch dock. Once the graphic was on the back of the switch dock's flap, I decided to use a matte finish clear coat on the parts. I don't think the switch dock would look very good glossy, so I decided to go with the matte finish instead. So I let the parts bake in a paint booth for about 35 minutes, and after 35 minutes, I took the parts out and inspected my handiwork. After inspecting my handiwork, I was actually really satisfied with how everything came out, so I put all the parts in a box and I brought it home. After taking about 15 minutes or so to assemble the switch dock again after painting it, it was the moment of truth. So there you have it, one custom Animal Crossing switch dock right before 2019. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little build process video. It was quite a fun project to do, but also quite a frustrating project to do at the same time. If you're wondering on how much time it took me to do this whole project, it took me about approximately a week. I could have completed the project a little bit quicker had I not broken the flex cable that is for the HDMI video out on the switch dock's motherboard. Luckily, I was able to locate a replacement flex cable for the switch dock on zlabs.com. That website is great for parts if you ever need them for consoles. I also made an imgur post regarding this entire project, so if you want a little bit more detail in text form, you can feel free to click the link that's in the description to that imgur post. With that said, that wraps up this video, guys. My name's Ken, also known as Wiltshire, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video in 2019. Happy New Year, guys.